All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Best Published Resources for German Research in America. My name is Kathleen McKenzie, Education and Programming Manager here at American Ancestors, and I will be moderating today's session. This program is brought to you by the Brew Family Learning Center. American Ancestors is a nonprofit organization supported by our members and donors. We provide resources and expertise in nearly all aspects of family history and are pleased to offer such programming for our members and friends around the world. Our presenter today is Senior Genealogist Rhonda R. McClure. Rhonda is a nationally recognized professional genealogist and lecturer. Before joining American Ancestors in 2006, she ran her own genealogical business for 18 years. She was a contributing editor for Heritage Quest magazine, Biography magazine, and was a contributor to the History Channel magazine and American History magazine. In addition to numerous articles, she is the author of 12 books, including the award-winning Complete Idiot's Guide to Online Genealogy, Finding Your Famous and Infamous Ancestors, as well as Digitizing Your Family History. She's also the editor of the 6th edition of the Genealogist's Handbook for New England Research. Her areas of expertise include immigration and naturalization, late 19th and early 20th century urban research, State Department federal records, New England, the Midwest, Southern, German, French, Italian, Scottish, Irish, French Canadian, and Atlantic Canadian research. So, German immigrants first arrived to American shores in large numbers in the late 17th century, and today nearly 45 million Americans have German heritage. Published resources are an essential tool for researching your German American ancestors, and there are treasure troves of published resources, including general guides, dictionaries, books on paleography, and published records including immigration, census, and military records. In this lecture, Rhonda will share her go-to published resources for German family history research in America. At any point during the presentation, please feel free to type your question into the Q&A panel found at the bottom of your screen. We'll address as many of those as we can at the end. There's also an optional syllabus available for purchase to accompany this webinar if you're interested. I'll put that in the chat and it will be in our follow-up email later on as well. Your purchase helps to support us in making these free webinars. This presentation is also being recorded for later viewing on our website and YouTube channel. So if you missed something on today's first listen, don't worry, you can always go back and review the presentation later. All right, without further ado, please join me in welcoming Rhonda.
Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar all about German published resources. Published resources are something that I think the more we do online, the more we get away from. So I want to talk about why these can be so important. So the first question obviously is, well, why use published resources if we've got everything online? Of course, not everything is online and probably won't be for many, many years to come. However, published resources can often provide context and background information. They are more likely to be indexed. They're more likely to contain standardized spellings of both places and surnames. They allow for an easier cross-referencing, and they can help you, you can use them to help locate original documents. Before we jump into some of the books, let's do a little dive into the immigration history of Germans to America. So for purposes of this section, we are kind of breaking down our immigration history into little snippets. Between 1683, which is the first known immigration of Germans, to 1709, the reasons for their coming to the American colonies was predominantly the result of religious persecution back in the old country. Between 1709 and 1714, the push factor was agricultural crisis, likely the result of the Great Frost of the winter of 1708 into 09. And then there was a pull in Queen Anne's recruitment. She was looking for shipbuilders specifically to go to New York. And so she made some grand promises that did entice a number of individuals. Between 1717 and 1775, the push factor, one of them was overpopulation, a lot of people, and there was a scarcity of land. The pull was recruitment again of Germans due to labor shortages in general. Between 1775 and 1820, of course, there was the Revolutionary War in the American colonies. This resulted in some soldiers, the Hessians, who were fighting on behalf of the British side. However, there were also Germans who were fighting under the French flag. Thus, they were fighting for the American colonies. Also, the beginnings of German industrialization were beginning to cause certain hardships to those living in Germany. Between 1820 and 1871, economic hardships continued through unemployment and crop failures. Uh, the individuals who were residing there, especially the men, as they were reaching their age of majority, they wanted to avoid military service. It was required of them. Uh, Regardless of whether they were in a duchy, a kingdom, a province, whatever. They had to serve military service, so a lot of them were trying to avoid that. And then there was also the governments of these different sections of Germany encouraging their poor to immigrate. They wanted their well-off people to stay, but they did want the poor to immigrate. Between 1871 and 1914, the big pull factor was the affordability in travel. Push factors were economic programs and also various political programs that were happening. And then between 1914 and 1945, we had political dissenters. We had Jewish immigrants, of course, because of what was going to ultimately happen in the 1930s and 40s in what was Germany. And then there were many who were unhappy with the post-World War I development, so they wanted to get out of Dodge. Some excellent resources for getting an understanding of historical immigration would be the three books you see here. Hopeful Journeys is one of my favorites by Aaron Spencer Fogelman. And this really looks at that early colonial period. It's an excellent resource for those of us who have individuals who came really early. The Brief History of German Immigration into America and German Immigration to America, the other two books, cover beyond the colonial period as well. So if you're more into, if you've got individuals who are in the colonial period predominantly, Hopeful Journeys is probably going to be your best because it is just focused on that. If you have those coming in later periods, the other two books are excellent resources. All right, so let's talk about different types of publications and how they can help us. And we are going to start with research guides. Research guides, by their very nature, they offer you a basic how-to. They can save you time and frustration and point you to valuable resources. One of the go-tos would be the Family Tree German Genealogy Guide that was written by James Beidler. It's available both in paperback and Kindle. Insight into identifying German-speaking immigrants and place of origin. And you'll see a lot of use of the term German speaking throughout this as well as the syllabus. And that is because when you think of Germany, Germany is not the Germany we know today. There are chapters that are devoted to German records as well as where to find the records. The German Research Companion, though it was published in 2010, it is one of my favorites, I think because of the way it's arranged. It has information on records and archives that are still very valuable. Yes, it's possible that an archive moved, websites are different, but the information is still valuable. It mentions many resources, both published and original, and just holds tons and tons of information. Here you see from the German Research Companion, this is section 3. It is devoted to emigration and immigration. And you'll see that it's like a double column, and there's like a timeline of immigration. There's ports of debarkation, so where they were coming from, the ports that they likely left from in the old country. There's lots and lots of information about published lists and so forth. So it's a great resource just in general. And another go-to is the Encyclopedia of German American Genealogical Research. It covers just about every topic you might expect. It is intense. It offers some valuable essays with bibliographic information. That's one of my favorite parts of this book. And it includes a section on what was the Holy Roman Empire German nation, which is in large part the kind of conglomeration of Germany that most of us had our ancestors coming out of. And here we have a couple of items from the Encyclopedia of German American Research. So you see the organization of the Holy Roman Empire, German nation. And then one of the sections that is included is the alphabetical listing of the principal sovereign territories of Imperial Germany. Understanding how those are, what those were, like by name, is going to save you so much headache. There's also a complete section about the Jewish who were in the southwestern section of Germany. And this little I actually have the encyclopedia on my iPad, and I like it because I was able to bookmark as well as highlight all of these really important terms of various offices that you are likely to stumble upon as you are working with your German research. Each office holds different records. So the terms in this section are really important and may help you in better understanding things that you find in gazetteers. And that leads us directly into gazetteers and atlases. So gazetteers and atlases, especially for Germany, hold an important place in German genealogy. Understanding the boundary changes of what was German speaking areas and what is Germany today is essential. And gazetteers are similar to dictionaries. There are few maps and images. They are more of place names arranged alphabetically, whereas your atlases tend to have mostly maps. Now, to get an understanding of Germany, here we have pre-1871. Keep in mind that 1871 was the unification of Germany. And all of these areas that you see in all these different colors are basically sections of German-speaking people. So there's states, there's duchies, there's kingdoms, there's provinces. Prussia being the biggest one, that's the kind of lighted, the blue, that's the big one. And, Austria was originally part of the German-speaking area, and that is sort of that light orange yellow towards the bottom right. Between 1871 and 1918, you will see how the upper part, the Prussian area, has now extended far into the east, and we have a lot less in the way of these individual tiny, duchies and states. And post 1918, let's be real, every time Germany gets involved in a war, somehow they lose land. And so here you can see that just after the end of World War I, sections that ended up being part or becoming part of other countries, and especially the part down in the bottom left-hand corner that became part of France. That is Alsace-Lorraine. And we'll talk about that in a moment. But you can see all of these little pieces parts getting siphoned off to other countries. And then post 1945, yes, a whole lot more of the areas end up going to either Poland or the Soviet Union. And so you can see that post-war Germany, especially on the eastern border, is much smaller. So gazetteers, what in Germany was the Alsace-Lorraine genealogical gazetteer is a must-have if you are researching individuals in this area. It is the section that in Germany was known as Alsace-Lothringen, and for France, Alsace-Lorraine. This section of area went back and forth between the two sides, and this volume includes maps that are alphabetically arranged. They have a place name listing, and it's going to help you understand this area and also the fact that there are German spellings for the towns and there are French spellings for the towns. And here you will see a couple of the maps. Again, this is a gazetteer, so it's alphabetically arranged by the place names, both in the French and the German, but the maps kind of offer you a variation to better understand the fact that the northern western area was the Alsace area and the southern eastern section was the uh, Lothringen or I'm sorry, the Alsace area, and it's actually divided into two sections. There is the Bass Rhine and the Wheat Rhine areas. So there's two sections in the Alsace, and then the Lorraine or Lothringen area in the upper west is just one big giant area. Atlases for Germanic genealogy. You're going to hear Ernest Thode's name a lot throughout today because he is an authority on German and he has compiled many, many published resources back when genealogy was all pretty much done by books. And this atlas, yes, it includes maps of that we would expect, but he's also included some very interesting maps, such as where specific male and female given names were more common. This a similar type of situation of maps with surnames that were more common. Then he also has maps for each kingdom, duchy, and state. And then towards the back of this little book, he has major origins of the immigrants who came to America. And another gazetteer is Myers Orts, as we usually call it, because the title is just absolutely ridiculously long. It was originally published in 1912. There was a 2000 reprint by Genealogical Publishing Company that included the original, but it also had a translation of the original introduction, along with instructions on how to use the gazetteer. It included a previously not reprinted appendix to volume 2, and the thin third volume there was the supplement to the 2 volumes that was originally published in 1913. And it looks like this. It is done in the traditional German Gothic font, making it very difficult to read, especially if you're not up on your German. And because of the nature of how many places he was including in it, it has tons and tons of abbreviations. However, good news for all of you, there is actually an online version of Myers Gazetteer. So you do have to use the www.myersgaz.org, and it allows you to do a search. You can use wildcards to if you're not quite sure of your spelling. And what you see here is that on the left-hand side, we have a little map, and above that map is the original entry as it appeared in the printed Myers Gazetteer. Then the whole right-hand column is first off, the top part is giving you what that Gothic font says, and then the detail that is below that is all of those abbreviations and explaining exactly what they mean. And most of them have to do with various offices, such as the Civil Register office, the military office, etc. And so having all of that on this makes it much easier to use Myers Gas. All right, there are tons of wonderful immigration compilations that can really help us with our German immigrants. Uh, Many of the available compilations of immigrants to the American colonies and then ultimately to the United States of America. Some compilations of immigrants from German-speaking areas, meaning perhaps outside what we would consider to be present-day Germany. They were essential for our pre-online period, and I still use them sometimes when I'm having difficulty finding something online. So they are still very valuable. We're going to start off with the Rhineland emigrants. This focuses on those leaving in the 1700s. These individuals were predominantly from the Palatinate, Württemberg, and elsewhere in the Rhineland region. The cross references are within this little book are to lists and other appendices in the volume. So there's some really good stuff in this book, and it does give you some cross references. The Württemberg Immigration Index was, for anybody having Württemberg ancestry, was everybody did the happy dance when this first came out. It was a 7-volume publication. It was abstracted from the immigration papers that were submitted within the area that is Württemberg, and it points you to the microfilmed, which are now digitized, original records of these papers, asking to be able to leave and head to wherever, most going to America. And the immigration index itself is available online. So here we have the immigration index. It is on Ancestry, and I just put in Schultz so that we could get to see a nice list of individuals. And so within this, I selected Friedrich Wilhelm A.L. Schultz, and you'll see that we have, if there was known, a birth date, the birthplace, the application date, the destination of the immigrant. In other words, he says where he's going to. And then there is a number. That is your family search film number. When you get to Family Search and you use the catalog, you want to click on the film fiche digital number and put in the number that was supplied by Ancestry. And that will bring you to the collection in question. And in this case, these are the Auswanderen. Anytime you see Auswanderen, that means immigrants, people leaving. And so eventually you will find the exact film number that you need, and you can click on the little camera, which will present you with the digitized images. Keep in mind, these have not been indexed by Family Search. There's no way to search the name. You have to look at these documents yourself. And when you first start doing this, I'm not going to lie, you may have to start with image 1 and kind of go through each one, familiarizing yourself with the handwriting as well as seeing how they are arranged. And ultimately, you will probably find the item that you were looking for. And in this case, we have Friedrich Wilhelm Albert Schultz. And this is being taken out of the civil office where he has submitted his information. And in this little bit that I've underlined, we have within it his name, his date of birth, and we have his father's name. So his father was Carl. So if you are out of Württemberg, you are one of the fortunate ones because they may have filled out something similar to this, and you may be able to find lots of great information. There is also for the early time period, the Pennsylvania German pioneers. I really, really encourage you to read the instructions, the introduction to this. It's a 3-volume set to understand the records and how they're arranged and where they were coming from. The passengers within this compilation are taken from 3 different lists. There were surviving captains lists. In other words, the captain kept a list of the people who were on his ship. Then there was the lists of the signers of the Oath of Allegiance. And there was another list of signers of the Oath of Abjuration. It is similar to an Oath of Allegiance and may have been used at a slightly different time. Both of them, the Germans are having to swear their allegiance to the King of England and also to the colony of Pennsylvania, because the Pennsylvania English were very, very afraid that with all these Germans coming in, that they were going to be taken over. And here we have one of the pages, a couple of the pages from the German pioneers. And you'll notice that in the bracket that starts each one of the lists of passengers, it will tell you what type of list it was. So this is a C list. It was done at the courthouse in Philadelphia on Thursday, the 14th of September, 1749. So this was an oath of abjuration. And we have the people who were present to do this, and then the foreigners whose names are underwritten, who were imported, and it tells you what ship they came on, who the master of the ship was, out of what port they were coming from, and so on. And the lists were taken from the original signed lists of the individuals. 2 other great compilations are The Germans to America. This one came out first. It comprised ultimately 67 volumes that were immigrants, German immigrants to the various US ports between 1850 and 1897. The purpose of this was at a time when we just did not have searchable resources. And so this was compiled. However, I still sometimes use it. As I mentioned, the indexing could be different than what we find online. Remember, humans are fallible. And so people may be misreading something, and you could search all you want online. If you're not finding it and you have a pretty good idea they came, you might want to see if you can get a hold of this compilation. It lists all the individuals who were on the ship with their age, their sex, their occupation, country of citizenship, village if it was known, and then the country they planned to ultimately reside in. And here we have a sample of that. So we have the headings. It's a 2-column. Each page has 2 columns on it. And so I have identified the headings in the red box. For each ship, you will see the name of the ship, the port it came from, the port it arrived at, and the date it arrived. I have highlighted that in a green box. And then I picked one of the families that was arriving on that ship. And the province and village, those are done by abbreviations that are at the front of the volumes. And then you see the destination in this case was Canada for this family in the purple box. There was a second compilation of Germans to America known as Series 2. This actually focused on the 1840s decade. It is comprised of 7 volumes. The information is very, very similar to the first set that was issued. Then there are many, many volumes that were compiled by Henry Z. Jones Jr., aka Hank Jones. These focus predominantly on the colonial period. They include sketches, so think in terms of similar to Great Migration for New England, where he's talking about places of origin, arrival information, and known children of the immigrant. And here we see a particular sketch. The good news about Hank's books are that they are all on Ancestry. And literally, you can see that they have just digitized the books themselves. So you see the pages and everything. It's great. And so in this case, we have Christoffel Frank, and we see information about when he was naturalized. The sources are all put in, they're embedded in the parentheses after each fact. And then we have the known children, Andreas, Anna Maria, and Christoffel Jr. And then anything that was any side notes or information he felt that was important to put in, such as he is obviously related to Andreas Frank, but perhaps a brother rather than a son, as he doesn't appear in Andrea's entry in the Schohari Lutheran family list. So again, there's a lot of cross-reference. There's resources that you can go to get more information. All right, dictionaries and deciphering of handwriting, critical to doing German research. Genealogy dictionaries, they offer German English for genealogical terms. This means items that you and I are going to find within our research in our warm and fuzzy genealogical records, as opposed to a more expansive, like unabridged German English dictionary. They also may include a lot of the unique abbreviations that we may find that are used within the German records. The handwriting guides offer variations of the handwritten Kurrentschrift, the Old German script, otherwise known as chicken scratch, or the Sutterlen, which is a later version of that German script that kind of took over in the early 1900s. The handwriting guides also offer words, months, dates, and more, and they're going to help you in becoming familiar with the handwriting. Once again, I bring up Ernest Thode here, the German English Genealogical Dictionary. Again, he does have some examples of the current shift and abbreviations. He has male and female names written in the current Schrift, which is such an amazing thing because sometimes the names are the hardest thing to figure out. Within the alphabetical German that he also has included prefixes and suffixes, genealogical terms, diseases, occupations, all sorts of things that we're going to come across in our research. As I mentioned, he does have some information before he gets into the alphabetical stuff, and part of this is the amazing abbreviations that you often will find. In other words, a marriage may be done by an infinity type symbol or two circles drawn together. The death of somebody is usually done with a cross. So if you see these in various compiled genealogy, records in German, they use these frequently to get more information and to make it simpler for them. But for us, we need to understand all of these little characters. And as I mentioned, he has the male and female given names that I have included here, and just a few of them. And then I did go in and just pull out some of the variations that you might find for words such as, wedding, marry, book of weddings, bridegroom, the bride, especially on the wedding day. And you'll notice that they're all very, very similar, but you may find them at different points within a particular record. My one go-to for the actual Germanic writing has to be Edna M. Bentz's If I Can, You Can, Decipher Germanic Records. There it is, a comb-bound volume. It's broken up by colored groups. The white is general information, such as, you know, the letters themselves and some of the terms for the like feast days and things, because if you're working in church records, you may have things that are being referred to by feast day rather than an actual calendar day. So that's all in the white section. The blue has Germanic, Latin, and Danish general terminology. So a lot of genealogical terms there, relationships, etc. The yellow is devoted completely to illnesses that you may find in death records. The orange section is occupations and titles. The tan is basically a chronological list of world events, and it includes a little column for you to add in if you wanted to pencil in your ancestor to get a better understanding of where they were and what was going on around them. And then the very back is green, that has the ordinal numbers and time. Again, they write out a lot of these things, so it's really important to be able to find those. And here you'll see that in her book, here is a sample of the alphabetic list with variations of the A, B, C, and D letters, both capitalized and lowercase. And we'll zoom that up and you can see all the different ways that you can write a D, and this is just some of them. And then here we have, again, some of the terminology that she has put here, the general stuff, which includes the script and then what it means. So if it was like an adoption, like an adopted child or something. So these are some of the terms that you're likely to find. Eltern, parents, that is going to be in a lot of the records that you are working with. So you want to memorize that one, and it often looks like the E does not look like an E, it looks more like a funny C. So keep that in mind. There's also this wonderful book here by Roger P. Meinert, Deciphering Handwriting in German Documents. He includes chapters not only on the German handwriting, but also the handwriting as it might have appeared in the Latin and French languages. He offers tons of images of documents. And for those documents, he includes a transliteration and a translation and then analysis. So it's a great resource for learning. Here is just part of his the table of contents. There's an entire chapter on the German handwriting, likewise chapters on the Latin and the French. He goes into all those great details of everything that you need to know about both. And then you'll see that within the chapter itself, he has all sorts of variations on what you might find as far as like the day of, the day before, yesterday, things like that that might appear. And then he has some simple items in examples that are digital. And then, as I mentioned, he has in tons and tons of these records. And you'll see that in this particular example, we have on the left-hand side, we have the document itself. This is a church certificate. On the right-hand side, we have the transliteration. In other words, he has written it down exactly as it is on the document. Then he has translated that for you. So not only do you get the example, but he has given the transliteration is the most important thing, because this is how you're going to learn how to read this handwriting. The translation is going to help you with the German, and then the analysis is how you're going to understand what it's telling you and where to go. So church resources. Church resources. The German churches in within the US sometimes offer German origins. Most valuable are the records, church records are most valuable because of the 1875 beginnings of civil registration. So anything pre-1875, you are going to be looking at church records. Good news is that there are many church registers available through Family Search. One of my go-tos whenever I am looking at a new area within Germany for research is Kevin M. Hansen's 68-volume set of Map Guide to German Parish Registers, Fill in My Place Here. The first 55 volumes are devoted to the various kingdoms, duchies, states, etc. And then volumes 56 to 68 focus on the large cities, so like Berlin and Frankfurt and things, because those are going to be very, very different than the more rural areas. Within each volume, he includes maps and information on both the Lutheran and Catholic parishes. Here we see for the parish of Forst, we see the map for the Lutheran churches on the left. We see on the right the parish key. And so that box is telling you the parishes where the towns themselves would have gone for their services. And so he's listed all of the towns. Not all of the towns have a parish identified. Also, you may find in some of his maps or in the parish key that not all of them will have the Family Search film number with it because the Family Search may not have those records. If you see no film number, which is that funny number to the right of the names of those parishes, then you know that you're going to have to seek out some other online resources of such as Matricula, and there's another German site as well that have begun to digitize the German records. Here we see the Catholic parishes for the same area in Forst. And again, we see the parish key. In this case, we see that obviously this was a very heavy Catholic area. And so there are a lot more Catholic parishes. And then the town key again identifies the proper parish if your ancestor came from that, a specific town. There is also this volume here, German Church Books, Beyond the Basics. It is all about how to use church records. It includes chapters on the marriage, the birth, the death, the confirmation, and other records. It offers you, again, guidance with the handwriting. If you take nothing from today, it's all about the handwriting and understanding it. And then there is a great glossary of terms as well. And here we see the chapter contents for this. You'll see overall problems, the, what to do with variations on the names. Then they focus on the big records, the marriage, the baptismal, the deaths, and the confirmation, and then some of the miscellaneous records that you may have also included in the church records. And so one of the items that I'm showing you here is on the left, is a family, what they call a family book. It is basically, it's like think in terms of like a family group sheet, only it's in a church record. And so we have that showing as an example on the left-hand page. On the right-hand page is Appendix 1, the start of it, an approach to church records. So this is the authors, how they work in church records, and may give you some guidance into how best to work in those records yourself. Census records. These are difficult in Germany. The lack of a unified country definitely poses problems with census. We're used to, US that's been doing censuses since 1790 for the entire whatever states we had. The very nature of the changes in Germany does pose problems with censuses and what survives and who took censuses and why. So the various entities may have taken a census for just 1 year or for a very specific reason. And this guide is going to assist you in identifying what exists and where to find it. So this particular volume, again, by Roger P. Minert, is my go-to for the German census records from 1816 to 1916. Chapters 5 through 42 are devoted to all the different kingdoms, duchies, states, everything. Those are arranged alphabetically. There are some valuable appendices, including Appendix D, which is like a mini gazetteer of those names of places. So here on the left-hand side, we have a census chart for a particular, in this case, Hessen-Nassau from 1818 to 1864, telling us what areas have a census and for what years. And then he also has included some letter writing aids to help you in contacting local archives if you need something that you cannot get, say, via, family search or something. And then there are some great newspaper sources that, newspapers are a great genealogical source just in general. And, they offer, for regardless of language, newspapers offer us a vital record alternative. There are wonderful insight into the community, kind of like a little snapshot of what's going on. German language US newspapers may hold clues to ancestral origins. You may be able to decipher this by the news that's being published in that particular newspaper about specific areas of the old country. Also, the obituaries of those Germans who have come, who have now passed, they may hold within their obituary a place of birth. Many of these newspapers are available online. And my go-to for this is none other than Ernest Thode's Historic German Newspapers Online, now in its second edition. This is a 327-page volume broken into 3 main sections. There's the alphabetical key to the site abbreviations with the accompanying URL, so you can go to whatever site he's telling you about. Then there is part A, that is the newspapers. They are sorted by current country, then place of publication and title. So you use part A to get to part B, which is the newspapers themselves sorted by title, dates, and that key. And once you have the key from part B, you're going to go to the alphabetical key at the front of the volume to figure out what site you're going to. And so in this instance here, I have chosen the Zentralblatt der Land- und Forstwirtschaft in Böhmen. And the dates of this particular newspaper run from 1850 to 1870. And the key is ANNO. And that is going to lead me to the Austrian newspapers online, which has fortunately a very short URL there. And that takes me to this particular website where I can then search for the specific newspaper I'm interested in. And here we have it. So each of, knowing the title, I always say to people, knowing the title of a newspaper or the the name of a church or the name of the minister or something, that's half the battle. Once you have something to search on, then you can go the next step. And in the case of the German newspapers, Ernest Thode's book is going to save you a ton of time. So in review, you want to avail yourself of the work of others. Don't recreate the wheel. There are a lot of valuable resources to assist you. German script is difficult. Take advantage of all the tools that are available. There are many books that offer tips, terms, and titles to follow up on. And save yourself frustration by seeking information on the various records by availing yourself of many of these books that we've talked about.
All right. Thank you so much, Rhonda, for that great lecture this afternoon. We will be getting to all of the great questions that have been coming in just a moment. But first, just a couple of things. I did want to mention some upcoming events that might be of interest to you all. So first up, Rhonda is going to be giving a 5-week online course in July on researching German ancestors. So definitely recommend checking that out to kind of take your German research to the next level with that more in-depth course. And then we also have another free lecture on July 10th, on the ground top repositories for researching in upstate New York. That will be presented by David Allen Lambert. And then finally, I wanted to mention a research tour that we have coming up in our Boston library. This is called Come Home to New England. It's a 4-day research program where you can come to our library, um, have one-on-one consultations with our genealogists, lectures, group meals, everything like that. And I'm actually at the very end of today's session, I'm going to play a video with some more information about that program, as well as another Boston research tour that we have coming up in August as well. And you can learn more about these and all of our events at americanancestors.org/events. And then just really quickly, I wanted to mention we also have a membership promo happening. You can use the code JUN25 for $25 off membership through the end of June. All right, so with that out of the way, we'll jump into your questions here. So first up, Rhonda, we had a question. You mentioned some church records that are available. Do you have any recommendations for synagogue records for researching the German Jewish community?
That's going to be difficult. My go-to for pretty much anything having to do with Jewish research in Europe is jewishgen.org to see if I can find the community and where it is currently, keeping in mind that a lot of the areas that our people came from maybe in a different country like Poland or something. So that's my go-to to start with anything having to do with Jewish research is jewishgen.org.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. And then a question, someone said, for the immigration lists on Family Search, can those be searched on familysearch.org/labs through the full text search, or is the handwriting too ornate to be scanned?
So if you're talking about specifically the Württemberg immigration records, there is actually a new icon that Family Search is using. It looks like a little document with some handwriting on it. That indicates if a particular film has been AI'd for searching. None of the Württemberg ones that I was working in, that doesn't mean that some of them aren't, but if you do not see that little document icon under format, then there is no way to search for it. You will have to go through the records themselves.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then I know this is a question we see a lot. What are your best recommendations for good resources for researching Hessian soldiers?
So I would say that because they were under the auspices of the Brits, I would probably turn my attention to Ancestral Trails. It's a volume by Mark Herber that is all about the English records. Also, there are some compilations about the Hessians. If you want to email me, I can do some digging and see if I can give you a value, like a go-to resource just for the Hessians. There was an article that was written many, many moons ago about the Hessians that was in the Utah Genealogical Society. I think it was the Crossroads, their publication, not UGA, which is associated with the uh, family search, but the one that is a separate entity. And their publication was called Crossroads. And I want to say that the article would have been in, let me think, probably 2007, 6, 7, or 8, 2006 to 2008, that did talk about Hessians and would offer some insight as well.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then we did get a question about your upcoming July course. Someone asked for Rhonda's July course, will there be any focus on finding the ancestors' place of origin in Germany, especially for pre-1800s immigrants?
Yes, so we will be looking at, working in the US and then ultimately working our way back into Germany. So we will be talking about things like Myers-Gas and things that are going to give you places of origin or assistance, and then working our way throughout the five classes back into the records of Germany.
All right, perfect. Looking forward to that. So then another question here, someone says Germans to America has 67 volumes. Is there an overall index to those, or are the volumes specific to certain times or places of departure or arrival?
So the 67 volumes, they start with the beginning of 1850 and they are done by chronologically by area, and each volume has its own index. So they were a stopgap for when we were researching just on microfilm. Yes, you may be able to find certain things through Ancestry and the and Family Search on the passenger list. I use them sometimes if I'm struggling with a particular name, because let's be honest, the computer does exactly what I tell it to, which is such a bizarre thing because nobody else does. That sometimes if I can eyeball in the index some variations of spelling, I may find something that fits as opposed to trying to guess in my head another variation of a particular spelling of a surname or a given name.
All right, perfect. Thank you. Then someone says, apologies if I mispronounce this German place name, but someone says, my folks came from Hochstall. What is the best place to find information about how the location may have changed? And I suppose this could apply generally to any sort of border changes.
Right. So the first thing I would want to do is I would turn to Myers Gazetteer, Myers Orts. Go to the website and put the name in. What you want to do is you want to get an understanding of, is it a village? Is it is it bigger? Is it littler? Etc. Where are the closest churches and things like that? What is the province or duchy or wherever that it was in? And then I would probably turn to just like a history on that particular province to find out how it was affected by the various changes in, uh, you know, the German areas.
Okay, great, thank you. And then someone asks, for my Mennonite ancestral couple, I know the town they were from ship passenger records, but I can't locate any Mennonite congregation records for that town. Is there a place to look for them?
So it's very possible that you want to get an understanding of the Mennonite religion back in Germany. And so what that means is that you're probably going to need to delve into the churches of the area or of Germany in general. And I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, like there are the Brethren. So there are certain offshoots that came here that were here in the US that may have come out of a different name back in Germany. If you want to send me via email your like what you know about the place, I may be able to find something. If they were Mennonite, I would probably, even though he does the Lutheran and the German and the Catholic, I would still probably look at Kevin M. Hansen's volumes to see where the various Lutheran and Catherine parishes are to get a sense of the larger areas where the churches may be located. So if your people were from a really tiny, tiny place, there may not have been a church in that area. They may have had to travel to go. So I would probably do that just to get a sense of the geography of the area, and then Myers-Gas to see what it says about what was closest and things. Keep in mind that if they were not of the two biggest religions, there probably are many fewer areas where they could go to attend. And in some instances, those groups just picked up and came. So, I know this isn't a great answer for you, but if I see where they're coming from and stuff, I might be able to delve into it a little bigger detail, but also a history of Mennonites in general may assist you in figuring out where they were coming from in Germany when they emigrated.
All right, perfect. Thank you. And then I think we've got time for about one more question. We received a question. Someone says, any suggestions for finding out if your ancestor's name was different before they came to the colonies? My sixth great grandfather and all descendants are listed as Banghart, but I cannot find any Bangharts on the ship passenger lists. Any suggestions?
I mean, let's be honest, if they were coming to the colonies, that's pre-1820, so the passenger lists are few and far between. If they were part of the Germans to the German passenger lists that were created for Pennsylvania and they were signing, it's possible that they were not identified on one of the oaths because they came over as what's known as a redemptioner. This is somebody who was it's like the reverse of an indentured servant, where an indentured servant already knows that he's got to serve his 2, 3, 5, or 7 years when he gets over to the colonies. The redemptioners took it on faith that somebody would pay for their passage when they got here, and then they would serve out that similar time frame to pay off the debt of the passage, and they would not have been free to take an oath at that time. So that could be a possibility. It's also, depending on where your people arrived, it's entirely possible that there is not all of the potential lists may not survive because anything pre-1820, it's hit or miss.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much again, Rhonda, for the fantastic lecture today. I'm definitely looking forward to your course next month. Unfortunately, that is all that we have time for today. But if you do have more specific questions about your family history research, you might consider hiring our research services team or using our expanded chat service. This chat service puts you in direct communication with a genealogist, and it is totally free and open to the public. It's available Tuesday through Saturday, 10 a.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time. And to access that free service, simply go to americanancestors.org/chat. I can't recommend that enough. That would be a great place to get your questions answered, since I know we couldn't get to all of them today. You can also book a one-on-one consultation with our experts at the link shown on the screen or through the QR code displayed there as well. I'll also mention that Rhonda is one of our genealogists who gives a lot of these consultations, so you can even book one with her if you'd like. So thank you again for joining us today. As I mentioned a little bit earlier, if you are interested in hearing more about our research programs at our library in Boston that are coming up this summer, you can stick around for another moment as I'll be sharing a video with more information about those programs. Otherwise, as you leave today's event, you'll have the opportunity to fill out a survey and give us your feedback. As we continue to expand our webinars and online offerings, any and all feedback is extremely helpful and appreciated. But all right, for those of you interested, I'll go ahead and close with that video about our upcoming programs.
Hi, I'm David Allen Lambert, Chief Genealogist for American Ancestors. I look forward to welcoming you to our programs in 2025, and this will include our Come Home to New England and our Research Getaway.
Hi, my name is Melanie McComb. I'm a senior genealogist here at American Ancestors. I'm one of the genealogists who will be leading the Come Home to New England and Research Getaway right here in Boston at our library.
One of the things that we have at American Ancestors that you benefit by is our vast collection of manuscripts, books, microform, and our expert staff that can help you triage your genealogical questions. Starting in 1845, American Ancestors focused on early New England. We have grown far beyond the confines of that time frame. However, our collection by far is one of the best in the nation.
What's great about our programs is you get one-on-one assistance with your genealogical questions. Whether you're looking at something going back to colonial or even something more recently in 20th century, we can help you with those questions with one-on-one consultations. What's a consultation? That's a conversation with a genealogist who's going to show you different resources, including items here at our library as well as online, on how you can go about breaking through that brick wall that you've been working on. There's also going to be expert staff on the reference desk, so you'll be talking to genealogists and archivists all around the building that can help you with your questions.
Over the years, what I've found that during our programs, our patrons and participants like yourself that go get this great camaraderie, not just with the staff that you're working with, but with the other participants. In fact, you may go home, besides looking for your ancestors, finding some cousins.
Our resources here include more than just New England, which we were known for. We also have one of the largest collections of Atlantic Canada, the rest of the United States, Caribbean, and also Europe as well. Our resources include not only our books, but we also have manuscript collections, microfilm, and microfiche, and of course access to our wonderful staff.
All right, so thank you all again for joining us today. And if you would like to access more how-to resources or learn about upcoming online educational programs, you can visit our online learning center at americanancestors.org/education. This free webinar was made possible by the generous support of our members and friends around the world. Please consider making a gift to American Ancestors to help support the creation of our programming. I wish you all the best of luck in your research, and I hope to see you at our online programs in the future. Goodbye for now.